Oh, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming together to immerse ourselves in this great body of wisdom we call Torah. We're going to read through this week's Torah portion, which is actually a double portion, Acharei Mot-Kedoshim. It's in the book of Exodus. It's going to begin with chapter 16. Verse 1 is going to take us through chapter 20, verse 27 there. And after we've read through our English translation of it, I'll share with you what I encountered and I experienced, and then we'll open up for everyone to have an opportunity to share what they encountered or when they experienced in this week's Torah portion. If you'd like to join me in giving a blessing, reciting a blessing, and giving thanks for this moment that we share, feel free to do so. Baruch
atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'nitzvot tav v'tzivanu l'asok b'divrei Torah. Amen.
Thank you, God, for the opportunity to immerse ourselves in words and deeds and relationships of Torah. Let me share with you the opening verses, and then I'll invite others to have an opportunity to read as well. God spoke to Moses after the death of his two sons of Aaron, who died when they drew too close to the presence of God. God said to Moses, "Tell your brother Aaron that he is not to come at will into the shrine behind the curtain, in front of the cover that is upon the ark, lest he die. For I appear in the cloud over the cover. Thus only Aaron shall enter the shrine, with a bull of the herd for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. He shall be dressed in a sacred linen tunic with linen breeches next to his flesh, and be girt with a linen sash, and he shall wear a linen turban. They are sacred vestments. He shall bathe his body in water and then put them on. And from the Israelite community he shall take 2 he-goats for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. Aaron is to offer his own bull of sin offering to make expiation for himself and for his household. Aaron shall take the 2 he-goats and let them stand before God at the entrance of the tent of meeting. And he shall place lots upon the 2 goats, one mark for God and the other mark for Azazel. Aaron shall bring forward the goat designated by lot for God, which he is to offer as a sin offering, while the goat designated by lot for Azazel shall be left standing alive before God to make expiation with it, and send it off to the wilderness for Azazel. Richard, would you like to read? We're at verse 11.
Yes, thank you, Rabbi. Aaron shall then offer his bull of sin offering to make expiation for himself and his household. He shall slaughter his bull of sin offering, and he shall take a handful of glowing incense and bring this behind the curtain. He shall put the incense on the fire before the Lord, so that the cloud of the incense screens the cover that is over the ark of the pact, lest he die. He shall take some of the blood of the bull and sprinkle it with his fingers over the cover on the east side, and in front of the cover he shall sprinkle some of the blood with his fingers 7 times. He shall then slaughter the people's goat of sin offering, bring its blood behind the curtain, and do with the blood so he has done with the blood of the bull. He shall sprinkle over the cover and in front of the cover.
Oh, thank you. And Mark, now we're at verse 16, if you'd like to read.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thus shall he purge the shrine of the uncleanness and transgression of the Israelites, whatever their sins, and he shall do the same for the tent of meeting, which abides with them in the midst of their uncleanness. When he goes in to make expiation in the shrine, nobody else shall be in the tent of meeting until he comes out. When he has made expiation for himself and his household, and for the whole congregation of Israel, he shall go out to the altar that is before the Lord and purge it. He shall take some of the blood of the bull and of the goat and apply it to each of the horns of the altar. And the rest of the blood he shall sprinkle on it with his finger 7 times. Thus he shall cleanse it of the uncleanness of the Israelites and consecrate it. When he has finished purging the shrine, the tent of meeting, and the altar, the live goat shall be brought forward. Aaron shall lay both his hands upon the head of the live goat and confess over it all the iniquities and transgressions of the Israelites, whatever their sins, putting them on the head of the goat, and it shall be sent off to the wilderness through a designated man. Thus the goat shall carry on it all their iniquities to an inaccessible region, and the goat shall be set free in the wilderness.
Thank you. And Carl, now we're at verse 23, if you'd like to read.
Thank you, Rabbi. And Aaron shall go into the tent of meeting, take off the linen vestments that he put on when he entered the shrine, and leave them there. He shall bathe his body in water in the holy precinct, and put on his vestments. Then he shall come out and offer his burnt offering and the burnt offering of the people, making expiation for himself and for the people. The fat of the sin offering he shall turn into smoke on the altar. He who set the Azazel goat free shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water. After that, he may re-enter the camp. The bull of sin offering and the goat of sin offering, whose blood was brought in to purge the shrine, shall be taken outside the camp, and their hides, flesh, and dung shall be consumed in fire. He who burned them shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water. After that, he may re-enter the camp. And this shall be to you a law for all time. In the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you shall practice self-denial, and you shall do no manner of work, neither the citizen nor the alien who resides among you. For on this day atonement shall be made for you to cleanse you of all your sins. You shall be clean before Adonai. It shall be a Sabbath of complete rest for you, and you shall practice self-denial. It is the law for all time. The priest who has been anointed and ordained to serve as priest in place of his father shall make expiation. He shall put on the linen vestments, the sacral vestments. He shall purge the innermost shrine. He shall purge the tent of meetings and the altar. And he shall make expiation for the priests and for all the people of the congregation. This shall be to you a law for all time, to make atonement for the Israelites and for all their sins once a year. And Moses did as Adonai had commanded.
Thank you so much. Jay, we're at the very start of chapter 17, if you'd like to read.
Thank you, Rabbi. 17. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, and to all the Israelite people, and say to them, This is what Adonai has commanded. If anyone of the house of Israel slaughters an ox or sheep or goat in the camp, or does so outside the camp, and does not bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting to present as an offering to Hashem before Hashem's tabernacle, blood guilt shall be imputed to that man. He has shed blood. That man shall be cut off from among his people. This is in order that the Israelites may bring the sacrifices which they have been making in the open, that they may bring them before Adonai to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and offer them as sacrifices of well-being to Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, that the priest may dash the blood against the altar of God at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and turn the fat into smoke as a pleasing order to Adonai, and that they may offer their sacrifices no more to the goat demons after whom they stray. This shall be to them a law for all time throughout the ages. Say to them further, if anyone of the house of Yisrael or of the strangers who reside among them offers a burnt offering or a sacrifice and does not bring it to the entrance of the tent of meeting to offer it to Adonai, that person shall be cut off from his people.
Thank you, Jay.
Or her people.
Yeah, Catherine, we're at verse 10 of chapter 17, if you'd like to read.
Hi, Rabbi. I don't know which box my Torah is in. I'm still unpacking from my move.
Welcome.
So I'll just listen today.
Mazal Tov on your move. May it always be a source of respite and comfort and sanctuary and well-being for you. Okay. God bless. Thank you. Let me invite Norm. We're at verse 10 of chapter 17, if you'd like to read.
And regarding any one of the house of Israel or of the strangers who reside among them, who partakes of any blood, I will set my face against that person who partakes of the blood. I will cut them off from among their kin. For the life of the flesh is the blood, and I have assigned it to you for making expiation for your lives upon the altar. It is the blood, as life that affects expiation. Therefore I say to the Israelite people, no person among you shall partake of blood, nor shall the stranger who resides among you partake of blood. And regarding anyone, whether an Israelite or a stranger who resides among them, who hunts down an animal or a bird that may be eaten, they shall pour out the blood and cover it with earth. For the life of all flesh, its blood is its life. Therefore I say to the Israelite, you shall not partake of the blood of any flesh, for the life of all flesh is the blood. Anyone who partakes of it shall be cut off. Any person, whether citizen or stranger, who eats what has died or has been torn by beasts, shall wash their clothes, bathe in water, remain impure until evening, and then shall be pure. But if they do not wash their clothes and bathe, then they shall bear the guilt.
Well, thank you so much. Rose, we're now at the very start of chapter 18, if you'd like to read.
Thank you, Rabbi. God spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelite people and say to them, I, the Eternal, am your God. You shall not copy the practices of the land of Egypt where you dwelt, or the land of Canaan to which I'm taking you, nor shall you follow their laws. My rules alone shall you observe, and faithfully follow my laws. I, the Eternal, am your God. You shall keep my laws and my rules, by the pursuit of which humans shall live. I am God. Not even one of you shall come near any one of his own flesh to uncover nakedness. I am God. Your father's nakedness, that is the nakedness of your mother, shall not uncover. She is your mother. You shall not uncover her nakedness. Do not uncover the nakedness of your father's wife. It is the nakedness of your father. The nakedness of your sister, your father's daughter, or your mother's, whether born in the household or outside, do not uncover their nakedness. The nakedness of your son's daughter or of your daughter's daughter, do not uncover their nakedness, for their nakedness is yours. Do not uncover the nakedness of your father's sister. She is your father's flesh. Do not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister, for she is your mother's flesh. Do not uncover the nakedness of your father's brother. Do not approach his wife. She is your aunt. Do not uncover the nakedness of your daughter-in-law. She is your son's wife. You shall not uncover her nakedness. Do not uncover the nakedness of your brother's wife. It is the nakedness of your brother. Do not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter, nor shall you take to wife her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter and uncover her nakedness. They are kindred. It is depravity.
Thank you, Rose, so much. Canterbart, would you like to read a little bit? We're at verse 18 of chapter 18. Okay. Let me invite Justin and Linda, if you'd like to read. We're at the chapter 18, verse 18.
Thank you, Rabbi. Verse 18. You shall not take a woman with her sister in marriage as rivals to uncover the nakedness of one upon the other in her lifetime. And to a woman during the menstruation, you shall not come near to uncover her nakedness. You shall not lie carnally with your neighbor's wife to become defiled by her. And you shall not give any of your offspring to pass through for Molech. And you shall not profane the name of Hashem, because Hashem is the Lord. And you shall not lie down with the male as with the woman. This is an abomination. And with no animal shall you cohabit to become defiled by it. And a woman shall not stand in front of an animal to cohabitate with it. This is depravity. You shall not defile yourselves by any of these things, for the nations whom I am sending away from before you have defiled themselves with all these things. And the land became defiled, and I visited sin upon it, and the land vomited out its inhabitants. But as for you, you shall observe my statutes and my ordinances, and you shall not do like any of these abominations, neither the native nor the stranger who sojourns among you.
For the people of the land who preceded you did all these abominations, and the land became defiled, and let the land not vomit you out for having defiled it, as it vomited out the nation that preceded you. For anyone who commits any of these abominations, the persons doing so shall be cut off from the midst of their people, and you shall observe my charge, not to commit any of the abominable practices that were done before you, and you shall not become defiled by them. I'm the Lord your God.
Why don't you read a little bit more, Justin, at the very start of chapter 19?
Thank you, Rabbi. Hashem spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the entire congregation of the children of Israel and say to them, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. Every human being shall fear her or his mother and his father, and you shall observe my Shabbat, and I am the Lord your God. You shall not turn to the worthless idols, nor shall you make molten deities for yourselves. I am the Lord your God. And when you slaughter a peace offering to the Lord, you shall slaughter it for your acceptance. It may be eaten on the day of your slaughter. You slaughter it, and on the morrow, but anything left over until the third day shall be burned in fire. And if it would be eaten on the third day, it is abominable. It shall not be accepted. And whoever eats it shall bear his sin, because he has profaned what is holy to Hashem, and that person shall be cut off from his people. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not fully reap the corner of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest. And you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you collect the fallen individual grapes of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am the Lord your God. You shall not steal, you shall not deny falsely, you shall not lie one man to his fellow. You shall not swear falsely by my name, thereby profaning the name of your God. I am the Lord.
Thank you so much, both of you, so much. Let me invite Margot. Would you like to read a little bit?
I'm 13.
Yeah, verse 13.
You shall not defraud your fellow. You shall not commit robbery. The wages of the laborer shall not with you until morning. Excuse me. You shall not insult the deal or place a stumbling block before the blind. You shall fear your God. I am the Lord. You shall not render an unfair decision. Do not favor the poor or show deference to the rich. Judge your kinsman fairly. Do not deal falsely with your countrymen. Do not profit by the blood of your fellow. I am the Lord. You shall not hate your kinsman in your heart. Reprove your kinsman, but incur no guilt because of him. You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against your countrymen. Love your fellow as yourself. I am the Lord. I am the Lord. You shall believe my laws. You shall not let your cattle mate with a different kind. You shall not sow your field with two kinds of seed. You shall not put on cloth from a mixture of two kinds of material.
Thank you, Margot. Thank you so much. Cantor Bard, would you like to read a little bit? We're at verse 20.
Yes, thank you. If a man has carnal relations with a woman who is a slave and has been designated for another man, but has not been redeemed or given her freedom, there shall be an indemnity. They shall not, however, be put to death, since she has not been freed. But he must bring to the entrance of the Ohel Moed as his reparation offering to Adonai a ram of reparation offering. With the ram of reparation offering, the priest shall make expiation for him before Adonai for the sin that he committed. And the sin that he committed will be forgiven him. When you enter the land and plant any fruit for food, you shall regard its fruit as forbidden. 3 years it shall be forbidden to you, not to be eaten. In the 4th year, all its fruit shall be set aside for jubilation before Adonai. And only in the 5th year may you use its fruit, that its yield to you may be increased. Ani Adonai Elohechem, I, Adonai, am your God. You shall not eat anything with its blood. You shall not practice divination or soothsaying. You shall not round off the side growth on your head or destroy the side growth of your beard. You shall not make gashes in your flesh for the dead or incise any marks on yourselves. Ani Adonai Elohechem, I am Adonai your God. Do not degrade your daughter and make her a harlot, lest the land fall into harlotry and the land be filled with depravity. You shall keep my Shabbats and venerate my sanctuary. Ani Adonai Elohechem, I am Adonai. Do not turn to ghosts, and do not inquire of familiar spirits to be defiled by them. Ani Adonai Elohechem, I am Adonai your God. You shall rise before the aged and show deference to the old. You shall fear your God. Ani Adonai Elohechem, I am Adonai. When a stranger resides with you in your land, you shall not wrong him. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as one of your citizens. You shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Ani Adonai Elohechem, I, Adonai, am your God. You shall not falsify measures of length, weight, or capacity. You shall have an honest balance, honest weights, an honest ephah, and an honest hin. I, Adonai, am your God who freed you from the land of Egypt. You shall faithfully observe all my laws and all my rules. Ani Adonai, I am Adonai.
Thank you so much, Gavin. Jay, we're at the very start of chapter 20, if you'd like to read. Oh, we can't hear you, Jay.
That's a hard act to follow, Rabbi. Okay. Yud He Vav He spoke to Moshe. Say further to the Yisrael, anyone among them or among the strangers residing in Israel who gives any of his offsprings to Moloch shall be put to death. The people of the land shall pelt him with stones. And I will set my face against that man and will cut him off among his people, because he gave of his offsprings to Moloch and has so defiled my sanctuary and profaned my holy name. And if the people of the land should shut their eyes to that man when he gives of his offspring to Moloch, and should not put him to death, I myself will set my face against that man and his kin, and will cut off from among their people both him and all who follow him in going astray after Moloch. And if any person turns to ghosts and familiar spirits and goes astray after them, I will set my face against that person and cut him off from among his people. You shall sanctify yourselves and be holy, for Ani Adonai Elohechem. You shall faithfully observe my laws. Ani Adonai Mekadishim, Mekadishem. If anyone insults his father or his mother, he shall be put to death. He has insulted his father and his mother. His blood guilt is upon him. If a man commits adultery with a married woman, committing adultery with another man's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall be put to death. If a man lies with his father's wife, it is the nakedness of his father that he has uncovered. The two shall be put to death. Their blood guilt is upon them. If a man lies with his daughter-in-law, both of them shall be put to death. They have committed incest. Their blood guilt is upon them. If a man lies with a male as one lies with a woman, the two of them have done an abhorrent thing. They shall be put to death. Their blood guilt is upon them. If a man marries a woman and her mother, it is depravity. Both he and they shall be put to the fire, that there be no depravity among you. If a man has carnal relations with a beast, he shall be put to death, and you shall kill the beast. If a woman approaches any beast to mate with it, you shall kill the woman and the beast. They shall be put to death after, and their blood guilt is upon them.
Thank you so much. Verse 17 now. If a man marries his sister, the daughter of either his father or his mother, so that he sees her nakedness and she sees his nakedness, it is a disgrace. They shall be excommunicated in the sight of her. So he has uncovered the nakedness of his sister. He shall bear its guilt. If a man lies with a woman in her infirmity and uncovers her nakedness, he has laid bare her flow, and she has exposed her blood flow. Both of them shall be cut off from among their people. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister or of your father's sister, for that is laying bare one's own flesh. They shall bear their guilt. If a man lies with his uncle's wife, it is his uncle's nakedness that he has uncovered. They shall bear their guilt. They shall die childless. If a man marries the wife of his brother, it is indecency. It is the nakedness of his brother that he has uncovered. They shall remain childless. You shall faithfully observe all my laws and all my regulations, lest the land to which I bring you to settle and spew you out. You shall not follow the practices of the nation that I am driving out before you, for it is because they did all these things that I abhorred them and said to you, you shall possess their land, for I will give it to you to possess, a land flowing with milk and honey. I, Adonai, am your God, who has set you apart from other peoples. So you shall set apart the clean beast from the unclean bird from the clean. You shall not draw abomination upon yourselves through beast or bird or anything with which the ground is alive, which I have set apart for you to treat as unclean. You shall be holy to me, for I, Adonai, am holy, and I have set you apart from other peoples to be mine. A man or a woman who has a ghost or a familiar spirit shall be put to death. They shall be pelted with stones. Their blood guilt shall be upon them. That's our entire double portion for this week, and I'd like to share with you what I experienced in reading it this week, and then I invite you to share with all of us what you experienced. In the middle of all this is this verse in chapter 19, love your fellow as yourself. I am Yud-Heh Vav-Heh. It is such a few set of words, and it seems so straightforward. At the same time, it may seems very powerful. Love your fellow as yourself. And so few words have spawned so many different understandings of what those words mean. So we'll look at just a couple of them. The first is from Rabbi Akiva, who was a late first century, early second century rabbi. And he said, those words, this is the great principle, the fundamental law, the crowning point of Torah. And then 1,000 years later, Nachmanides, known as the Ramban, had a slightly different interpretation. He said, this is an expression by way of overstatement, meaning referring to what Rabbi Akiva has just said. What Rabbi Akiva has just said is way overstatement, because a human heart is not able to accept a command to love one's neighbor as oneself. Rather, the commandment of the Torah means that one is to love one's fellow being in all matters, as one loves all good for oneself. And then the early sage Hillel, when he was approached by someone who was not Jewish, who was perhaps exploring attaching himself to the Jewish community, asked Hillel to just stand on one leg and tell me what is all of Torah about? And Hillel's response was, that which is hateful to you, do not do to another. That's the entire Torah. And the rest of it is interpretation. Go instead. So Rabbi Akiva gives perhaps what we might call the maximalist understanding of this phrase. Literally, it means love your neighbor the way you yourself would want to be loved. And then Ramban says, well, that's asking a lot of people. I mean, surely, we love ourselves most of all. And how can you transfer that degree of love onto someone else? So what it really means, according to Ramban, is, just say, I hope you're well. I hope everything goes well for you, just the way I hope everything goes well for me. And then Hillel seems to look at this and say, that this notion about love someone exactly the way you would want to be loved, that's it. It's asking a lot. And so maybe if I can just reformulate it a little bit and just say, don't do something bad to someone else that you wouldn't want done to you. Okay. But he adds on to that phrase. He says, look, that may be the entirety of Torah, but everything else is interpretation, and you need to go study. Well, what does that mean? Everything else is interpretation. And what does it mean to go study? It seems to me Hillel seems to be adding to that notion is, if you think it's as simple as what I've just said, you need to go study some more. You need to bring out from your own understanding what this material means to you, rather than merely parroting it back to me word for word. So here we are. We're stuck with these notions about what does all this mean, and as I was thinking about that, I looked at this double portion and the fact that it's named Acharei Mot-Kedoshim, which encompasses two rather, one might think, contrary states of being, death and holiness. So why does the Torah have us encounter these two seemingly opposite notions of the end of all things and the highest state of all things? I said to myself, that's kind of strange. And as I thought about the strangeness of it all, I thought, here's this compelling phrase, love your fellow as yourself. And I thought, maybe it's not as simple as it seems. Maybe underlying what seems so straightforward are depths of understanding. And perhaps that is in fact what Hillel is trying to hint at. Nothing is as simple as it seems. There are dimensions beneath every black letter that you encounter of complexity and of context. And then I looked at the word for fellow, when it says love your fellow, this word rea, and I went to my Hebrew dictionary to kind of get an etymological perspective on it all. And what was fascinating was to discover this root verb, these root letters out of which the noun rea is constructed. It's constructed from the three Hebrew letters, resh, ayin, hey. And when I looked it up in my Hebrew dictionary, lo and behold, it was more complex than I had imagined. There are at least three different verbs that are constructed out of these three letters. The first is ra'ah, which means to associate with, and that is indeed where we get the noun re'ah, a friend, a companion. But here are two other verbs that are from the same three letters. There's another verb, ra'ah, which means to pasture, to tend, to graze. And that's where we get the noun ro'eh, a shepherd. And then we have yet another verb constructed from the same three letters, which means to take pleasure in, to desire. And we get there, ra'ah, a purpose or aim. And I again thought, well, that's kind of strange. What kind of etymological DNA do these three letters and these three different verbs and these different nouns all share? To associate with, to pasture, to take pleasure in, a friend, a shepherd, a purpose. What is it that they have in common? What's their blood lineage, if you will? What family are they all part of? What's their nature of their cousin-like relationship? And then as I was looking in my dictionary, I recognized, oh, there are two people who are also birthed out of these three letters. And one of them is Ruth. Ruth, we know, was a Moabite. We know that we have this book, the book of Ruth. She is someone who insists upon attaching her destiny, first of all, to her mother-in-law, who's like herself is now a widow, and says, I'm going to be with you. Where you go, I'm going to go. Where you live, I will live. Your destiny is my destiny. And her mother-in-law Naomi says, no, that's a dead end. You should stay here, find yourself a nice Moabite man and marry him. Now that my son, your husband, has died. And Ruth says, no. And so she comes and returns with Naomi to Bethlehem, Beit Lechem, the house of bread. And eventually she marries Boaz, and she is an instrument of compassion. She's an instrument of love, and she helps transform this whole community, which had suffered. In the story, they suffered a food famine, but it also was a famine of spirituality, a famine of loss of community. The story is that when there was this famine, people fled from it. So it was a deserted, shriveling community, and she restores life to it. And through the Bible, we learn that eventually she becomes the great grandmother of King David. Wow, transformative. Okay. And then the other name that is emerged out of this three-letter combination of Resh Ayin and Hey is Ruel, which is another name for Yitro. And he is a Midianite priest. And his relationship with Moses is such that's extraordinary. If Moses goes off to do, he's a busy guy. He's a CEO. He's the head of everything, and he's got stuff to take care of. And he goes off, and it seems like he forgot his wife and his kids, and so busy. I mean, he got big important stuff to do. And Yitro Ruel comes and brings the wife, brings the children. He says, you got to take care of them too. They're important too. And in addition to all that, once he's there, having done his job of reuniting his own daughter with Moses, who had married her, he looks around and he says, this job is killing you. This is not the way to do business here. You need to share some of this burden of leadership that you have with other people. It'll be better for you, and it'll be better for everyone. And Moses doesn't. And so this encounter with these two strangers, these who come from very different backgrounds, they have very different stories to tell, they have very different customs, and yet the Israelite encounter with them transforms the Israelite community. But more than that, I want to suggest that the encounter with the strangeness that Ruth and Ruel represents somehow also sparks within the Jewish community some kind of realization that perhaps there are things that we have taken for granted about who we are and how we do things that we need to re-examine. Perhaps there are layers below the familiarity of who we are that is a mystery yet to be explored. And perhaps there are different ways of doing things. And the most profound of those, of course, has to do with Ruth. Because in the Torah, it says, hey, you can't allow someone who's a Moabite become a member of the Israelite community. And yet we have this story about Ruth, who's allowed to become a member of the community. Not only allowed to become a member, she marries and she becomes a great-grandmother of King David. And so the rabbis in the Talmud grapple with this. And what they end up saying is, well, Bible meant was no Moabite men. It's okay for Moabite women become part of the community. But within that kind of little statement is this apprehension, this comprehension that, what looks like a clear statement is full of exceptions, full of context, full of specific cases, and we can't just live on the basis of clear doctrine. It requires, as Hillel said, hey, if you think you understand it just from the few words that I've said, you got some studying to do, because really what it's all about is interpretation. So this notion about this encounter between strangers got me to thinking about where we are today in terms of this world that now is so much more in touch with itself than ever before in the history of humankind. Through the internet and all the forms of communications that we have. And has it made us feel a greater sense of shared humanity? Or has it ended up in these senses of greater anxiety about one another, a reluctance to engage with people who don't think the same way we do, don't belong to the same political party that we do, who don't eat the same foods that we do, who don't cheer for the same sports teams that we do, all these things. And so we've created these silos of in which all we hear is what is familiar to us. We hear only those things that reaffirm our preconceptions and our biases. So strangeness hasn't become, as it is in the Bible, a sense of wonder, a sense of awe, a sense of something, a burning bush, something to be explored. No. Things that are strange now become threats to ourselves and our sense of we understand the world, and so we don't want to be exposed to those things that are strange to us. So I came across this book by a man named Eric Santner. Eric Santner is chair of dramatic studies at the University of Chicago. But his own description of what he studies and what he's interested in goes far beyond dramatic studies. Here's how he describes what his work is all about. He says it's situated at the intersection of literature, philosophy, psychoanalysis, political theory, and religious thought. He himself is the son of Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe. And one of the books he wrote is called On the Psychotheology of Everyday Life, Reflections on Freud and Rosenzweig. And basically, what it's an intersection of psychoanalysis and theology. And that in this book in particular, he explores the notion of what is revelation. And what he comes up with is revelation is an openness to the uncanny and the singular. An openness to the uncanny and singular, which in biblical narrative is what happens at Mount Sinai. But for him, it represents a kind of therapeutic process. The notion that we can become open to that which is strange. And so he sees revelation as a form of therapeutic process to enable us to extend ourselves beyond what we are used to and what we're familiar with, and to see that as a source of healing, that strangeness is a source of healing rather than division. And here's a quote from that book. The possibility of any genuine sense of community is based on the fact that every familiar is ultimately strange, and that indeed I am even in a crucial sense a stranger to myself. So the painting I picked out for this week is another painting by Van Gogh. And this is one that he did immediately upon his admitting himself to an asylum to deal with mental pain and anguish that he was experiencing. And he did several self-portraits during this period of time. Of course, it's also when he painted The Starry Night. But this painting that I've got on the study sheet is one that he did immediately after admitting himself into the asylum. And you can see when you look at it that he's not well. His skin looks as if it's been stretched over his skull, his cheekbones, his eye sockets, and his forehead are protruding. He has this ghostly pallor on his face that's indicative of the stress and shock that his system has been experiencing. For Van Gogh, he undertook these forms of self-portraits as a way to heal himself by getting to know himself in all his ill health so that he could transcend his ill health. And one of the things that's fascinating to me about this painting is that it is in many ways a mirror image of a painting, a self-portrait that Rembrandt did of himself 200 years before. It has, in Rembrandt's, just like in Van Gogh's, the artist has positioned himself with just a 3/4 profile. He has the smock on of being an artist. He's holding, both Rembrandt and Van Gogh are holding the palettes and paintbrushes. Both of them have very intense gaze straight out at us. And so Van Gogh, who greatly admired his fellow Dutchman, Rembrandt, is proclaiming himself, I'm not just an ill health, near death, desperately mentally ill human being. I am also an inheritor of Rembrandt. I am also a great artist. And so I am more than this ill health that you're experiencing. And I want you to see that, because I see that too. So Van Gogh was very aware of how his own condition was alienating to many people, who only looked upon him as that strange man wandering in the fields. And so he wrote this letter that's full of beauty and pathos to his brother Theo, which I'll share with you. He wrote, what am I in the eyes of most people? A non-entity, or an oddity, or disagreeable person, someone who has and will have no position in society, in short, a little lower than the lowest. Very well. Assuming that everything is indeed like that, then through my work, I'd like to show what there is in the heart of such an oddity, such a noble. This is my ambition, which is based less on resentment than on love, in spite of everything, based more on a feeling of serenity than on passion. And in a few months, Van Gogh had died. But what he left for us is not just the beauty of what's on the canvases. What he left for us is this beauty that he has of his yearning and his love for fellow human beings, despite the fact that in many ways they were repelled by him, that his love for them was often unrequired. And what he was sharing was, there's something in strangeness that is also beauty. And I want to show that with you. And I'm showing that with you, not because I'm angry that you haven't returned my love. I'm sharing it with you because I love you. I love all of you. So it may be occurred to me that, these days we try to unite ourselves with people who share our points of view or share our interests in something and our backgrounds. But it may be that, as Eric Santner says, that what we share most is our strangeness. And that's really an appreciation of strangeness is ultimately what builds community. So with that, I'd love to know what you focused upon, what struck you, what you were thinking about, and what you felt as we were reading this week's portion. You raise your hand, I'd love to call upon. Okay, Richard here.
Rabbi, you I'm an iconoclast, but what you said leads me to share this. For a couple of years now, whenever I read that, love your neighbor as yourself, because he is yourself, she is yourself. There's only one of us, and we all need one another to get over our pride, to understand that within everybody there's a human being, and that everybody, with even the strange ones, there's something in there, and that's something that we ourselves have inside as well. And to me, it says, love your neighbor as yourself. Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Catherine, please.
Thank you, Rabbi. Um, what at first appeared to be sort of a contradiction that we have this line, love thy neighbor as yourself. At the same time, we have all of these rules that if people do not observe the commandments, that they will be cut off from their kin. So that is kind of contradictory. But in listening to your last reflections, it seems to me that it's very important to remember that, okay, you can cut off someone as your kin, but you can't treat them worse than what you would like to be treated as. So it encourages a kind of conciliatory uh, stance or a caring stance. They may become strangers, but one should not mistreat them because they are strangers.
Thank you for bringing up that point, Catherine. So here's what you got me to think about, which is today we might think about if I break the rules at my country club, they're going to say your membership's revoked. And I'll say, I really like that country club. It had really good food, had a nice golf course, and everything, but I'll just go to another one, or to be expelled from various groups, make you angry, I think. But what's the big, ultimately you'll find some other group. But in ancient society, the notion of being cut off from a community of people was like terrible. It's like life apart from being a member of a community was like to wander, to be the wandering dead. And so what you're reminding me is how, at least for until modern society, the notion that one would be not attached to a community was to wander the earth as a unattached dying soul. And so it's a good reminder for us of what have we gained by our elevation of the individual as the highest expression of what it means to be a human being. So, and I'll just leave it for this. So thank you for kind of highlighting that aspect. Okay. Let me call upon Rose, and we've got Jay. Okay, go ahead. So go ahead, Rose.
Thank you, Rabbi. I find it interesting that there's a lot of interposition of these things about sexual impropriety, along with the notion of holiness. And I think, underlying a lot of the parts of the Torah and even of the Tanakh, there's this association of improper, in other words, improper sexuality is one of the big roots by which we stray from God. And, whether this suggests about the fertility practices of the Canaanites, that could be part of it. And I'm thinking specifically about Pinchas and what he does, putting a spear through the Israelite man, and then the I don't know, she's a Moabite woman. And later on in the story of Solomon in the book of Kings, Solomon was this great and pious man who actually built a temple. But at the end of his life, he's led astray by foreign women that he takes as wives. And you see this all through the Torah as saying that sexuality of all sorts is a route by which people, particularly the men, are led astray from God. And I find that very interesting.
Great. So here's what you got me to think about, which is certainly the Jewish tradition values sexual intimacy, and in and of itself, regardless of whether it has to do with bearing of any children. Just sexual intimacy is a beautiful thing because it is that encounter where two people let down the barriers between them and they create this union unlike any other. We encounter that in our Torah portion. The notion that the wife's flesh is the same thing as the husband's flesh, that there's no division between them. And so this notion about the value of creating that intimacy through sexual relations is highly valued within Judaism. What maybe the text is trying to make a distinction between is that level of sexual intimacy and sexual encounters that are largely either predatory.
Yeah, well, I think that's what they're talking about.
Or out of an expression of I want to, rather and that I want to, that expression of wanting to do it just because I want to, rather than doing it because I'm here so that my being can be one with your being. It's like a different way of trying to draw that.
Yeah. I think it's, using, and that's what was true in Rome, that a male Roman could have sex with anybody that they wanted to because they were a male Roman, but I think that, it's just interesting to me how this association with predatory kind of sexual behavior is so much associated with God, as the antipathy of godliness.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that level of willfulness as opposed to oneness or something like that. Thank you for that. Let me call upon Jay, and then we'll get to Justin. Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Rabbi, well, I want to thank you for a lovely evening in the absence of Robert. He says, I want to thank you for a lovely evening. Okay, these are hard acts to follow, but when you see all of these intricacies between people and all, and here we are 100 generations later, it's telling us, look, why don't you guys kind of figure out that what's, works and what doesn't? I'm hinting at, but remember, I created you and I told you, you better make the best of this. So you figure out ways to make the best of it and follow, your mitzvot, follow my mitzvot. Now, the second thing, Rabbi, that just struck me like a bricks was when I looked at the painting. Here, Vincent is no stranger to anything in that painting. He's one with the comets, the stars, and everything. And you see, there's no separation here. What you see is Vincent. There's no. It's not like a painting that Dolly would. No, you see everything. And the final thing that came to mind was as this Parsha dragged on, and as I looked at it, where are these words from? If I may take 3 more verses. Granted? Okay. Now I understand what you tried to say to me, how you suffered for your sanity, how you tried to set them free. They would not listen. They did not know how. Perhaps they'll listen now. For they could not love you, but still your love was true. And when no hope was left inside, on that starry, starry night, you took your life, as lovers often do. But I could have told you, Vincent, this world was never meant for one as beautiful as you.
So it's a compelling song. Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay. And Justin, please share.
Thank you, Rabbi, and respect to holding this evening. And maybe this is a little bit much, but I think it's really, to me, the essence of biblical study is not to look at this text necessarily as always easily assimilated. And these passages in particular involve that. And was reminded this evening of the writing of a psychologist in Southern California by the name of Edinger. He was a Jungian analyst, and he said that for him, let's see if I can find this. He says, my personal image, and I really look at the Torah as like this, right? It's like my personal image is that we have a huge banquet table, a shulchan, around which all humanity sits. On the table lies the vast bulk of the Leviathan, waiting to be eaten. Here and there, in little spots, it will have been cooked, but most of it is completely raw. If the individuals who have cooked these little spots eat some of the cooked stuff, they'll be able to integrate it. But the vast majority of people will be eating raw slices, and they will fall into identification with the primordial psyche and live it out. That's what we've got with a lot of this stuff here. And when we have a literal interpretation, there won't be any consciousness. But through the few who continue to cook their little pieces and eat them very, very slowly, the Leviathan is being assimilated and transformed. So I just wanted to offer this sense. And I mean, in this sense, we get I asked a little bit of perplexity here. We talked about Leviticus 18 through 25, right? It says, Haaretz became defiled, right? And this is the land, in the biblical sense, the land is ritually and morally polluted by the people's acts. The text treats the land as covenantal participant. In this depth psychological perspective, the psychic field is contaminated by unassimilated material. What is ignored or acted out begins to alter the environment. So maybe that's enough to kind of say that there has to be this way of assimilating something that I think when we get these radical religious interpretations that people are consumed by, that we're failing to understand the depth of the Torah reading that's coming to us. And yes, it's brilliant and it's also terrifying. So that's my opinion, respectfully offered. Thank you.
No, and it's beautiful, Justin. So here's what you just sparked in me, which is we have the story of Job, and Job's friends seem to be operating in a framework where, hey, you know the rules, just follow the rules. You're suffering because you did something wrong. So just say you ask God for forgiveness because you obviously did something wrong because that's the only reason that you're suffering, because that's the way the system works. You do something bad and you get punished. And God's voice says, you don't understand me at all. So the notion that, oh my gosh, after reading all this material, I thought I know all the rules, and I know what I'm supposed to do and not do, and now I'm being told I don't understand it at all. That all this is now it's all strange to me. Okay, so it is this voice that says, oh, if you think that you understand, if you think you're familiar with it, if you think you're grasping it, you're going the wrong way. And the only way to go to the right way is to look not at what the easy, understandable, superficial explanation or the familiar is. The only way to understand it is to go into the strangeness of it all. And ultimately, that's what, if you go to a therapist and the therapist says, so, why do you think you feel it? Why do you think you're feeling this way? And as the analyst, you say, I got to figure it out. It's because, my mother or my father or whatever, and I did this and I did that. And this is, you think so? You think you got to figure it out? Well, you're going to figure it out only when you think that you don't know. And so the place to go is not what you know and understand. The place to go is what you have a complete mystery about. And once you go into that place, maybe you get things you normalize for yourself.
And thank you. And I mean, that points also to, just the way that people are psychologically literal about what they're doing too. And that's the reason that we're approaching this with a sense of readership. I don't want to say that there's a specialized group of people, priests or rabbis or other people or psychologists that have to interpret the material, but there's something about continuing to cook it and to cook it in the community of people that are willing, that are already coming from their own, heartfelt intentions to try and hold that community. I think that's the piece. And we don't know, but there is a community and a way of doing this. That's what I keep on looking at. So,
and I think what you're echoing back is essentially what the message that Hillel was trying to share with this person who was, let's say, spiritually homeless and looking for a spiritual home. And basically Hillel says, look, you can read this stuff and you can spout this stuff letter and verse for me, but that's not what it's about. What it's really all about is interpretation and yourself as an active agent in creating meaning, not as a memorizer of what someone else has placed before you as meaning. And that's what this tradition is offering. And I think that's what this Torah portion has introduced us to, I think, is that the only way through this is by encountering the strange, not just the strange outside of us, but the strange inside of us. And that's the only way we can create healthy communities. So I want to thank each and every one of you for creating that kind of community of interpreters and active agents in creating meaning that creates the environment in which it's okay to explore the strange and the mysterious. God bless you all. I look forward to our next gathering. Be well, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Very deep, very beautiful. Be well.
Good night.